Hey everybody, it's Travis here with the NPCs, and welcome to another NPCs Weekly News Roundup. It is October 1st, 2022. Welcome to Spooky Month. Of course, with everything spooky, of course, is all the news going on. We're going to be starting, of course, with the demise of Stadia. That's right, Google has announced that Stadia is being shut down at the beginning of 2023. What does that mean for people who have bought into the platform? We'll also be talking about Cyberpunk 2077 getting back up on the top of the charts thanks to its Netflix debut. And of course, we'll also be talking about the Rockstar and Uber hacker having been arrested and charged with the crime of hacking. That and more on today's Weekly News Roundup. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup for the week of November 20th, 2020. It is Friday. It is, where's my date? It's September 18th. 2020 here to our first story, and this is actually breaking news for all of us right now here too. Figured this is a kind of a big one to cover, of course, with who it is. Joined via Discord by Kyle because we're in the midst of a pandemic still, and of course everything is all kinds of crazy. So this thing is a chonker. I mean,
yeah, it's a beast.
It's huge. Doing that we had the Resident Evil stuff, that they were successful with Castlevania. Welcome to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup. And it's the news time. I am joined, of course, by Kyle via Discord. Kyle, hello.
What's up?
Man. All right, we're here, we're live, we're up, we're on the air. Welcome again, everybody. It is October 1st, 2022. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us for the Weekly News Roundup. My name is Travis, and of course, over there, that guy, that's Kyle, as always. Kyle, what's up, man?
What's up?
Well, what's up
Not
is...
Not over here.
Not over there, at least, yeah. A lot going on over here, getting ready for a trip out first thing tomorrow morning, and geez, I don't want to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go catch that flight, so... Hooray for that. No, not well. Although I will say I did go pick up a new video out adapter for my iPad mini and made sure that it all worked. So I tested it with Forza Horizon 5, Halo Master Chief Collection, and Metal Hellsinger, and it worked, except Metal Hellsinger, because of that delay, it's not worth trying to use that on there. It definitely, for a rhythm game, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I would assume that any sort of lag in that game would make it impossible to play it. So
yeah, exactly.
Probably a no-go.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't worth it to keep playing that one. But hey, I got a few games at least I can access, no problem there. So
heck yeah.
Yeah. But of course I'm going to be accessing that through Xbox's cloud streaming because Google has announced that they are shutting down Stadia. I figured that was a great segue. It's a sad and unfortunate thing, but the writing has been on the wall for some time. Earlier this week, it was announced that Google, actually it was only 2 days ago, that Google has confirmed that they will be shutting down Stadia at the beginning of next year. What that includes is that all hardware having been purchased through, all Stadia hardware that's been purchased through the Google Store and all game and add-on content purchased through the Stadia Store will be refunded to customers. So that means, Kyle, for you, because you have one of the Stadia controllers and such, you may actually be able to get yourself a refund on it, even though you haven't used the service.
You know, though, I'm kind of in that audience of people that's actually hoping that Google will actually unlock the controllers for just standard Bluetooth usage, so you can use it for, you know, Xbox or PlayStation or, you know, Switch, or if I wanted to use it on my Steam games, I could, because really and truly the Stadia controller was a pretty comfortable controller. I mean, standard Xbox style controller with the PlayStation stick placement. However, it just had a really comfortable feel to it, just the ergonomics of it. You know, slight differences in the way they mold the plastic, but it mattered, you know?
Oh, no, it did. It did. And I think that was one of the highlights that controller had anyway, was just that the ergonomics were great on it. A lot of people felt that the layout was really good because it did fall in line somewhat with the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. You know, it didn't follow the Xbox mantra of the analog stick in the top left, and then the left analog stick in the top left, and then the right analog stick in the bottom right. But I definitely am. I'm right there with you, and I know you and I have talked about that a lot since the announcement. That I do hope they open source all of that, so that way it can be used, and you can remap buttons, you can do all of that customization to it. You can use it for more than what it was destined for, being Stadia, and it doesn't end up in a landfill. It's just I think it's too
Well,
good of a Bluetooth controller to pass up.
and ironically, on a lot of devices, you have to use Google Play in order to download Microsoft streaming service anyway. So, I mean, it's kind of handy to just have this extra controller that, I could use for streaming on a different service, ironically enough.
Yeah, very true. Um, so the way that this wind down is going to work is they've already since shut down purchases in the Stadia store, which means you can't buy any new hardware, you can't buy any software. What's there is there. What you have is what you have. And what they will do is, besides the refunds of all the hardware and software and stuff, people who have that content are going to be able to continue to access it and play it through January 18th of next year. So you have at least a couple months to still use that content. But I think what I find more interesting on this is more of the lack of communication from Google on this to the developers. And that not only includes indie developers, and one in particular who was getting ready to launch a game. Like, they were 2 days away from launching a game on Stadia and had no
Yeah,
word about what was happening. And
totally
then
blindsided.
exactly. And then your AAA developers, though, too. So you're talking Ubisoft, Bungie, IO Interactive, the makers of Hitman. All of those guys
Hmm.
were blindsided by every single thing there that was announced. And I guess it came out even more so that that Bungie had actually developed special tools that utilize Stadia. So that way, when they were in the midst of work from home during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, they actually were able to build out some crazy cool development tools that allowed their teams to still access builds and play test things over Stadia. Now they have to figure out how to
Yeah.
take that work that they've done and migrate it to something else or come up with a different solution. Maybe Google will still offer some type of back-end support for them in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, Google really
Or
botched
maybe it
the
goes with
messaging.
Bungie, and then all of a sudden that bolsters PlayStation's cloud service.
It's very possible, but they
Who
really
knows?
botched the messaging, though. Google really dropped the
Yeah.
ball on this hard because, yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
no, there were a
share
lot of
anything.
developers that actually found out via Stadia's Twitter, and they had been told just happenstance that, oh, Stadia's closing today, and sure enough, when they looked it up, they found it on Twitter of all places.
Yeah, this was pretty devastating, I think, for at least, the developers and such anyway, though, too, especially the indie devs who may have started to figure out like what the capabilities or at least possibilities were. Right now, though, at least in regards to those players who have um, put their time and effort into games on Stadia, especially those that are live service games, a good example, again, going back to like Bungie is Destiny 2, those developers are working out right now how to exactly to get those stats and profiles off of Stadia and allow those to be transferred to another platform of the player's choice. So that way that
Mhm.
content can still carry over, whether they create some type of linking through their own like account system of some type, just like in battle.net. You can register connections to different things, like you can register to like Twitch. You can add on, I think, Steam as well, though, too. You can link up all these different things. Hopefully they'll be able to go back around and do that, so that way progress can at least carry over where something is going to continue to be supported.
Well, and I hope it's not just, and Destiny in specific is a major one, because I know there's a huge player base of Destiny players. That's actually one of the biggest games on Stadia continuously since it launched was Destiny. And not only for their sakes, but like for the people that purchased Cyberpunk, that invested a lot of time into it, because really and truly at the launch of Cyberpunk, it was the best way to play, unless you had a beefy computer. But even then, oftentimes it was still a better experience if you had a good enough internet connection to play Stadia.
Absolutely. That's one of those
So
kind of like interesting shining examples. And it's not to say like what Stadia did was wrong, but one of the things I kind of recognize, at least about Stadia, is that it drove forward more of the idea of cloud gaming, at least. Like, there were still initiatives and
mhm.
efforts that were going on to introduce some of the cloud gaming technologies anyway, like especially with Project X Cloud from the Xbox team. PlayStation had their PlayStation Now as well, that you could do through like a mobile device, although it wasn't necessarily
Right.
marketed heavily. We still had some other cloud things that were out there, but this was the first foray into it to really kind of put that front and center as like the solution to gamers who maybe can't get their hands on something. And it proved to be an interesting use case, especially now where for like PlayStation 5 fans, that they can't get their hands on a PlayStation 5 because of the way stock is handled. And it's like, well, how are you going to be able to play those games? Well, go get a beefier PC, or you just end up waiting for something like that. At least AAA
Right.
titles were able to come out this way. Granted, not necessarily PlayStation exclusives, but it kind of helped to at least open up some of that, or at least create some of that bridge that we hadn't seen yet, and start to kind of put that idea forward. And now we've seen what PlayStation's done with revamping the PlayStation Plus platform and how they're integrating PlayStation Now. Microsoft, of course, with the way they've integrated everything, cloud streaming into Game Pass. GeForce Now has really picked up on things too. Steam is kind of starting to get into some parts of that. I mean, I know that they've got Steam Link, which is really for more like the home, but I believe I had read somewhere that they're working towards their own offering of some type, though, that maybe will go in hand in hand with the Steam Deck. Nintendo, of course, is putting games in the cloud, though, too, especially those AAA titles that can't run on the Switch. It's not to say that like the failure itself over here should be overlooked with everything shutting down, and the way that communication was handled, but really look at where some of those net positives came out of, like what Google tried to do.
Well, and the service itself isn't like technically going to disappear. It is getting absorbed into other platforms that Google is offering currently, or is creating partnerships for. Uh, the sad part of it is still at the announcement of the closure of Stadia, is they still had the best latency and the best gameplay experience of all the cloud gaming services. So I really hope that, Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo, basically everyone, especially, Logitech with their new platform coming out, can hopefully take a page out of, Google's book and learn and develop from, what hardware they were using, and, what kind of software they were developing to make the platform run so smoothly.
Yeah, I'm 100% right there behind you on that. And I guess as it stands right now, we just have to see what else happens, because now that this is gone, or at least is on its way out now, what about like Amazon service, for example? Amazon Luna is effectively the same thing as what Stadia was for Google. I wonder what that means for it. Like, I mean, it maybe isn't such of like a cost center in regards to like, burning money or anything like that, compared to like maybe what Stadia was like. But that's another one to keep an eye on, at least as a potential chopping block one for Amazon here in the near future, given, maybe with what happened here.
But I mean, Amazon here of late has become as guilty as Google of lighting bonfires of money on fire, as far as
Jeez.
failed projects or projects that they launch and decide to just discontinue support for. So
Yeah, that's also very true too. So
yeah,
I guess it is something to keep an eye on for the time being, just to see what happens there. But if you are a owner of Stadia hardware, go and look for the information on Google's Stadia website there to find out exactly what you need to do to claim your refund on your hardware and your software. But that, of
they're
course,
looking to have all refunds done by January, I want to say.
so around the same time they shut everything down. So okay, so you got
Yep,
a little bit
yep.
of time, but the sooner the better. But we carry on, of course, here to the next part of the news with Sega. Sega has announced that they have a blockchain title in development, and it's being worked on by Japanese blockchain company Double Jump Tokyo. So they will be working on a game based on the Sengokushi Taisen series. I may be pronouncing that wrong. I don't speak Japanese natively or anything, so I just do my best with what I see. Apparently, this game series uses it's a real time strategy game series predominantly played in arcades in Japan that uses real physical cards to play with. So if you imagine, um, I guess imagine any type of card game that you'd play, these cards must have some type of like NFC communication in them, or maybe use a camera above to actually see what the cards are, and then that's what you interact with. I know I've seen like there was this Injustice arcade over at the mall that actually would dispense cards that you, I believe, would use when you actually play on that arcade.
Whoa.
And so, like, yeah, and I mean, it's not like that different for us to see cards. Like, there were some racing games that I think we also had at our old arcade that you could get
That's right.
like a tracking card or whatever. But
Initial D.
yes, exactly. Yes, there was that
Yeah.
one. I think there was another one though too besides that. But anyway, this one is actually using more of like the cards to actually do RTS based stuff. And so it looks like that's what they want to focus on doing, because NFTs, at least, are basically digital assets that are considered yours in the capacity of, some besides somebody going in, screenshotting it, and then saving it yourself. It's kind of one of those ways to look at it, adapting and embracing NFTs, at least for those who want to take on the blockchain technology into their games. But again, I feel like it's always been just, us beating a dead horse here with our discussion on NFTs anyway, and trying to incorporate blockchain technology. I mean, Kyle, you're a Sega fan. Like, what do you think about this? Do you think that this is like this series must be popular enough for them to consider doing something like this, or do you think it's just I don't know?
The Sengoku Shi Tyson is a very popular series from what I understand in Japan. It's not something that I ever recall coming to the States, and if so, it's had a very small launch that probably wasn't super well received because it is a card game. Um, this really grinds my gears as far as Sega goes. I mean, the one rumor that I've been hearing is that this might be one of the first steps to the Super game, which also makes me cringe a little bit, because it's supposed to supposedly go hand in hand in some way further down the line with the Sonic open world game. So I really don't like the NFTs. I don't think they have any place in gaming. We've talked numerous times about this. I think we have how many actual like just conversations that are that we put out about NFTs and gaming, and it's just not the time. And I've said it's not the place, and maybe potentially down the line it is the place, but it's not right now, and it's not for children. And they're trying to open it up to the world when the world isn't even ready for crypto yet, and crypto's basically just crashed on us recently. So
Yeah, especially I don't know where people really sit with a lot of this stuff anyway, especially when it comes to it. I mean, it's 50-50 in what I see for like blockchain technology. It's like it has its value and it has its purpose for things. But at the same time, it's ripe for exploitation, especially as it relates to NFTs and it involving some type of cryptocurrency. I mean, we've seen people who have gone and spent millions of dollars on an NFT, and because the crypto behind it crashed, they're out a lot of money. And you see a lot of stuff reported on online about people who spend so much money onto these things that they end up taking like second mortgages out to go and purchase these things, because it's like, oh, there's all this hype behind it and it's going to keep growing and growing. That's what all these people are saying, and it ends up being just effectively a pyramid scheme in some capacity, at least for some people. But
well, and on the other hand too, what if you spend lots of money on an NFT and the host of the NFT gets hacked, so it's technically out of your control entirely, and someone else takes control of your NFT?
that's exactly it though too, because
Then you're out of it.
Right.
That happened to what was it, Seth Green?
Yeah, that his wallet was hacked. They transferred his NFT out of there, and now he can't make that show that he was going to make based on it. Which
I think
that
he
was a
ended up
mixed
actually
bag.
paying the ransom to get it back.
Maybe he did. I don't actually know. I
Yeah.
didn't follow up on that. I just knew that it had
So
happened. I just laughed about
I
it.
mean, but it's silly things like that, your wallet being able to be hacked or the host server being able to be hacked, and all of a sudden your NFT is gone, or the host server just being, disappearing. Then your NFT's gone entirely. I mean, it's tracked on the blockchain, but what happened to the original? It's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So how they're actually going to handle anything like this is going to be a rather curious one, whether they're still going to be using physical cards and those somehow translate to an actual NFT of some type, like in the digital space, in the blockchain space. It's still to be seen what they're going to do. But because of the effort there on it being a card game of some type, or at least some sort of RTS, which I did have a video going there in the background of the arcade version going there, where they are
Yeah.
interacting with those cards on a table, and they are being at least read in some form. It's going to be interesting to see where that actually does play out and how that does play out.
It almost to me seems like it's a cross at that point if they continue it as like a actual media, like physical media based with an NFT, um almost like a Toys to Life thing, similar to like Amiibos, or even dating back to Skylanders and stuff.
That's actually a very good thought on that one. I hadn't actually
Yeah.
kind of considered anything like that.
And maybe that's a great way to actually ease the public into being able to conceptualize NFTs. But I think that's probably the weakest concept to do so.
Yeah, and now that you even say it, like thinking on Amiibos, isn't it when you purchase one that you actually have to register it to yourself anyway, though? Like once you actually scan it in, you actually register it to yourself, and then when someone goes and scans it, like say like my kids are playing on another Switch and they take one of my Amiibos, they go and scan it and they go, it's like, it actually has something registered with it that says this is so and so's Amiibo, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
sure
but
it
you
writes
can
to it.
reset them and stuff.
Right, but that still kind of almost falls into that same vein where it's like
Mhm.
that's another way that it's introduced in that some people have already been doing that anyway in some capacity, just without that layer of protection to actually prevent a reset from happening. It's just an idea, at least, that is already there and being presented. But I don't want to even think about Nintendo doing NFTs right now. That's way out there. I'm good on
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Even so, there's no release date on when this game is going to come out. It's most likely, like for anything, going to be focused on the Japanese market, especially because this card game doesn't exist in the United States. But be on the lookout for more details from it as we continue on, through all these blockchain NFT chaotic messes that game companies like to announce.
They can keep it.
They can, I guess. In the meantime, let's move on to some of the more surprising news out of all of the gaming news this week, though, too. And that is Cyberpunk 2077's in the news, but for good news. And that is that it's back on top after surpassing the 20 million copies sold mark earlier this week. So Cyberpunk originally hit the 18 million copies sold back in April. And of course, this game released at the end of 2020 to much fanfare. And then, was it 2020 or end of 2019? It was the end of 2020, I think, because it was
I
after
think it was
the series.
2020, yeah.
Yeah, I got him mixing up dates already now too. But it had released back then, and now, of course, April this year, they had announced they sold 18 million copies total, but they have added on an additional 2 million since then, which means that obviously something has gone right. And what it looks like is going on, of course, is the success of the Cyberpunk Netflix show, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and, of course, the announcement of the DLC, Phantom Liberty. Kyle, I mean, we've seen resurrections and revivals of games that kind of really irked everybody. I mean, a good example is No Man's Sky and a lot of the promise that game had. And when it came out, what a disaster it was. I mean, obviously it was playable, but it didn't deliver on all the content versus Cyberpunk, which delivered a whole mess of content that made the game unplayable.
Right.
Yeah. And so, like, what do you think about that, though? That Cyberpunk's really come back up on the list? I know that's kind of part of our quest marker stuff here, and we can make mention maybe of a little bit of that before we get in. But what do you think about that, though? That Cyberpunk's made its way back up the chain?
I'm kind of glad they made do on their original promise of what they had intended to release, regardless of the fact that you know, they shouldn't have released it on the Xbox One and the PS4. That's just that. Um,
Yeah, that's a big one.
it just runs really rough on those systems. I mean, it runs okay on the One X, but and the PS4 Pro, but they should have never made it compatible for anything lower than those consoles, and they know it. But it's good that they, fixed it before the show came out, and they have announced actual uh full length DLC that'll be coming out. And maybe this will be the dark horse. This could be, what causes Cyberpunk to be the next Witcher, They're gonna do the whole Blood and Wine expansion all over again, give us an entire new game almost. Maybe not, but I mean that the city's pretty vast and it's supposed to add a whole new section. I think it's really exciting, and I'm really happy for CD Projekt Red that, they've gained this support.
Yeah, I'm right there with you too, and I need to go back and reinstall it and give it another hard go here, just with any other updates that I've missed, just to really
Me
kind of
too.
push it out there. And you may want to try it actually on your Steam Deck and see how you fare with it, though.
I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought about it.
But they also did share at least one of their larger metrics, though, is that earlier this month, that over 1 million players actually played the game every day, actually just this last week. And then they hit their highest, and this is from IGN as well, too, is they also said that Cyberpunk 2077 also hit its highest concurrent player count on Steam in over a year and a half earlier this month, which means that since it launched, it hasn't really hit anything crazy high, but it's running up there. I mean, like, I wonder what SteamDB.info says. Let's see. What is Cyberpunk on the list at right now? Cyberpunk currently has 89,391 players right now, with a peak in the last 24 hours of 113,383. That's pretty cool, to say the least.
That's a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty awesome there, especially that, that there have definitely been more players at least adding on. And that's only just Steam. I mean, obviously some of these metrics are probably coming out from the other platforms, though, too, that obviously they're able to collect and provide more info on anyway. But that is some good news, though, to at least see that some life has come back to Cyberpunk. And I will have to check out this Edge Runner series because from what I understand, this takes place years before the events of Cyberpunk 2077. And there's work being done by modders right now to actually bring that content in to Cyberpunk 2077. So things that were in the anime will make their way into at least Cyberpunk 2077 for people who want to experience that side by side.
That'd be cool.
That is pretty neat. So if you haven't had a chance to go and play Cyberpunk 2077, let's see, what's it going for right now on Steam? It is presently listed for, let's see, where?
Probably full price.
Yeah, current price right now in the United States,
$59.99.
Yep, $59.99. The lowest recorded price it ever got down to was $29.99. So that may have been just yeah, it looks like they were winter sales and summer sale this last summer, actually just this summer alone. And it was only just recently on sale, down 50% off a couple weeks ago. The week of Monday, September 12th, it was last 50% off, which means that maybe it'll be back on sale again here very soon for people who didn't grab it.
Yeah.
So keep your eye out for that one, folks. But let's carry on here to the next story we've got on the list, and that is about Overwatch 2. So obviously we are in the midst of the review sessions for Overwatch 2 because this game launches on October 4th. We are only 3 days away from the launch of this game. I've already got it preloaded on PC, but I won't be able to play it
So
until
do
I
I.
get back into town. Hooray. Um,
Uh,
but even with that,
I'm not waiting
um,
for you.
I know you're not. I know. It's okay. It's all right. I understand. Needless to say, where things sit right now, of course, in a lot of the pre-review stuff that has been coming out, is that it definitely is very grindy though to get through stuff. More specifically, all of the characters that we've come to know and love in Overwatch 1 are not going to be available for you to start playing with in Overwatch 2 right off the bat. You will need to play 100 matches. 100 matches if you are a new Overwatch player. 100 matches to unlock all of the original characters from the original Overwatch game. 100 matches, Kyle. I mean, that theoretically could be, I mean,
Does it?
for a dedicated player, that could be a week's worth of play, really.
It could be. I mean, it also depends on how the matches play out. It does kind of make me question what base characters they're gonna give you, because they're gonna have to give you at least probably one or two of each class. So I don't know. I imagine soldier, of course, but where beyond that, who knows? Um, yeah, that sucks. I have a feeling that that's gonna have it's gonna kill a lot of new players.
Yeah, it very well could. It's going to vary, of course, though, too,
Or
because I.
on the other hand,
Hmm.
I've heard it is also a pay heavy game if you want it to be. So there is the potential that new players could possibly just unlock everything by paying.
That's true. That's true. That really comes back though to the question is why they just decided, like, why they didn't just go the route of just releasing a full version of the game. Like,
Yeah.
I know that there's the what is it, the Watchpoint edition that you I think
Mhm.
picked up, and that
I
itself.
have not actually.
No, you
I've
didn't. I
thought
thought you
about it.
did. Okay.
No, I've been thinking about it just because I know it gives you the first season, and I think it gives you enough credits for actually two additional seasons potentially. But
Mm-hmm.
it, still, it's tough to spend that money because I know I'm buying into a free to play game.
Yeah. And I guess if you look at it on the opposite side, though, for new players, at least new players versus experienced players, because I know that, like, I'm not the best Overwatch player, but I
Mm.
do feel like I have some pretty good luck with playing at least a couple certain characters, especially like Lucio, for example. And
Right.
this note here on this IGN article actually makes a good point, and I'll read this off to you so you can hear about this. It's this actually comes from the Overwatch subreddit, and it says it's about as close to a practical tutorial mode I think devs can get in an FPS. I'm certainly not complaining. If this includes matching new players in separate server instances with other new players, all the better. It will definitely keep new players from getting immediately roasted by better players and by match chat, which will probably create a higher retention rate of new players, which is what Blizzard is going to want to be wanting to bolster with it being a free to play model. So by taking the slow approach to bringing in new players and not effectively throwing them to the wolves for all of the people who have been playing Overwatch since 2016, it's one of those ways to not burn them out as fast. I mean, this is the same concept, at least that I've read, that League of Legends also takes too, that some things are locked down because they don't want to expose all of the new players to everything and get themselves all mixed up. They would much rather
Mhm.
take a more gradual approach to get you to the right spot. So this isn't necessarily the worst thing, but at the same time, I'm still on that other side though too, that it's like, well, you're kind of locking down. It's like people are starting to really figure out what characters they like, and now it's like it may take them 55 matches maybe to get to that character. It's sometimes it just feels like a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But needless to say, I think for a lot of the people who are going to play Overwatch 2, at least initially, it's going to be your OG Overwatch players. I think that's really where we're going to see most of that, and then you're going to start to see the rise in new players. Like I'm hoping, Kyle, I'm hoping that Blizzard actually comes back and gives us metrics to show, here's all the people we know of as returning players. Here are all the people we know of as new players. Here's where our metrics stand, and it would be nice to see that over the course of the next several months to see how things actually fare for like the number of new
Yeah,
players over time.
but then there's also the terrifying metric of, 3 months down the line, who out of, what category is still playing. So,
True. Very true. Uh anyway, of course though, with Overwatch 2 stuff, it's an interesting way to be able to get that to be available, like at least character wise, but I kind of get it at the same time though. I mean, we were used to it from the original Overwatch release that it's like everybody was there and we could just start working with everybody as soon as possible. We will be able to now at least, that's not a problem, but what a pain in the butt sometimes.
hmm.
But even so, let's carry on here to our last main story of today's news roundup, and that is about the Rockstar Uber hacker has been arrested and charged on with all different levels of hacking and such into these different companies. So, man, this was a big read, especially as going through, because I remember seeing this stuff happening as as things were being released. But
Oh yeah.
the person that they arrested is a 17-year-old from Oxfordshire in London, or Oxfordshire, UK. And they arrested him because it was a 17-year-old, so there's no name, no other information out there. Other than they've been arrested and they have been charged with all different levels of hacking for these two companies. However, it also sounds like that one of the charges that this kid got was also a what was it? Basically violating the conditions of their probation or their bail or what have you, because this same 17-year-old is also the one that hacked Microsoft and Okta earlier this year too, which by far is one of the more like eye-rolling things that these guys got hit by the same kid. What it comes down to is that for anybody who may not be aware, and if you're not aware, geez, where have you been? But several weeks ago, Grand Theft Auto 6 details started coming out, and we started to see videos of developer builds making their way out, showing us things for GTA 6 that we didn't actually expect to ever see. Things such as actual like development screens that they would see when they're trying to play a game. We actually saw characters that we haven't even heard about yet from Rockstar. We've actually seen part of a mission play out. We've seen how weapon loadouts work. We've seen how interactions with the police work, though, too. A bunch of different things that we didn't even expect to actually view, and at the same time get the confirmation that this is taking us back to Vice City. Now, with that out of the way, of course, the kid who hacked all this stuff was working to, take the information they had, make more dumps, and make a whole bunch of money. But, of course, was not able to do so and got busted again. Part of the hacker group known as Lapsus, or Laspus. I think I've always said Lapsus for some reason, but Laspus. And yeah, I mean, he's been charged, and it's a 17-year-old hack, though. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's insane.
And do you want to know what a lot of it is? Okay, so I'm a security guy here now, so this is me flexing my muscle now a little bit, Kyle. I hate to do that, but do you know how he did it? Do you know how he actually broke in? So for the Uber hack, and I assume it's the same way with Rockstar, he literally got access, or he got the credentials for a Uber developer's user account and was saying that he was with Uber IT and constantly spamming them with two-factor authentication messages, to the point that the guy just gave up, or the person gave up and gave them his two-factor authentication code, which let him into Uber's back-end systems and start to just go and mess around with everything that he was messing around with there. The assumption is that it was the exact same way that he got into Rockstar as well.
Oh, wow.
So two-factor authentication being those codes you get that when you go to sign into some services where they text you a code, or you use something like Google Authenticator and it's got codes that list in there. Very likely one of those that was just pulled and provided out to allow this person to gain access, where then they were able to get in, they were able to poke around and find everything that they were, and sure enough, that's where we got to the point with this. So Kyle,
That's insane.
if you see your phone going absolutely crazy for two-factor authentication messages just out of the blue, whatever, someone's trying to get into your account, and if they try to message you because they probably have some other information on you, and they message you saying there was support for some type and they want your code, don't give it to them.
Right?
The TLDR. It's like you wouldn't give somebody your PIN to your debit card or the last four of your social security number unless you knew who you were working with. It's like, don't do that with your
Right.
multi-factor authentication codes too, okay? Okay? All right. Now that that's out of the way, Kyle, what do you think about the fact, though, that this kid is the one responsible for hacking Microsoft, got busted, went out on bail, and then now back around on it again?
I mean, the kids either got some big balls, or he's just incredibly stupid. And like, not stupid in the sense that he's incredibly intelligent, that he was able to hack these systems, but how dumb do you have to be to go out and do something so blatant again, and so criminal, and so I don't know, so big. I, I that's like trying to pull a like Ocean's 11 and failing, and then trying to do it all over again and failing again.
I like the comparison to Ocean's 11. I don't know why I just do, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he thinks he's Danny
I don't know how
Ocean.
to I don't know how to compare it to anything. It's like, let we failed once. Let's do it again. But let's just fail it again anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's just funny just to see that it's like, I mean, like, it goes to show more of like, it's like a lot of people think hacking, oh, you're looking for ways to log in and connect in through all these other different means, like you're going to hack a website and use that to get around and get in. When it really
Mhm.
comes down to the human factor on everything, it comes down to like the weakest link in the chain, and it ends up usually being a person, you know? Like,
Yeah.
that ends up becoming it, and the kid exploited it. The kid used he just kept on being persistent enough to actually make it happen. And so good for him to figure that out, but at the same time, yeah, it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's like they should have really, like, as part of his bail, they should have really locked him down on everything else, but I
Yeah,
don't know
he
how
should
that.
not have had, that much access, especially, being that young, to a computer again. And then, beyond that, he should have been monitored, for years of any computer access he had, because of the security breaches he had caused.
Yeah, exactly. It should have been that way, but I don't know what happened. Maybe there was still a requirement for computer access or something. I heard something there too, is that he actually used his phone to get in and grab the details from Rockstar.
Yeah, that that's just insane. And it's funny because it does tie into one of our quest markers, actually. The whole two-factor authentication by text message. It's just ironic that, this is how he did it. And, I think it's gonna cause a stir. But we'll talk about that here in just a
Well,
second. So
well, the whole thing
yeah.
I'm going to ask you this though is that I know it's part of the quest marker stuff anyway, but didn't Blizzard actually have physical two-factor authentication devices that you had to get at one point in time, like for World of Warcraft?
At one time they did, yeah. And actually at one time you could buy like remind me of what it's called, the physical version of a two factor,
I think
that it generates a key physically, but it's like a whole separate device.
let's see. Uh, all I know is that it was also just called the Authenticator. I just want to
Yeah,
actually
but
see if I can find it.
like there's actually a physical term for it in IT, that it's basically a physical key that generates, that it'd be kind of like a
All that
smart card.
You could just call it a
Uh,
random number generator, and it's just tied
yeah.
in with your account. Yeah, it's kind of like the same
But
way that.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
the same thing, and you could order one from like Blizzard, if I'm not mistaken, that would just do the same thing, and you just hit a button and it would pop up a number for you.
yeah. Like I've got the. Oh, great! Thanks for that. With oh man, I can't move the picture up any higher here just because the way I have the screen formatted.
But
But I know
yeah,
people
I
can see it
mean,
right here in the center. But
they were kind of ahead of it in that sense, and now the fact that they want it to be based on a cell phone number rather than an actual authenticator program via Microsoft or Google is just the most bizarre thing in the world to me.
Yeah, like I would much rather use Google Authenticator or another platform that I already have on my phone instead of using something like SMS text, because that, as we've already seen now, and especially hear about more of these hacks though too, where people are able to basically duplicate your SIM card and put that into a phone and receive messages on your behalf. Basically, it kind of does become a problem. And even like Serpent Knight here makes mention in chat, I got a bogus email recently claiming my Amazon account had been discontinued, but it wasn't from Amazon at all. I knew it stunk because it was asking for my social security number, and that's definitely one of the that's one of like the more deeper ones, but at the same time, that's more of one of the really like awkward ones, because you don't generally see many directly just blatantly asking for a social security number. Usually they ask for some other type of code or information, but it's not an actual or it's not too far-fetched to see something like that happening in the world. But man, yeah, I wish that they would go back to the physical thing too, or use a different one. Separate yourself so that way you're not relying on it on just your part.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, that is it though for the regular news. At least when it comes to all of it, the hacking thing, man, I can't wait to hear more out of that with Rockstar and Hooper and stuff though. But we move on to quest markers with Mr. Kyle too. And Kyle's got some fun things to talk about with all of that jazz. Kyle, you ready for this one?
I think so. The first one's kind of news to me. So here we go. So first quest marker for today, Valve announces dates for the next Steam sales. And actually, the Steam Autumn Sale will take place from November 22nd to the 29th, with the Winter Sale being held from December 22nd to January 5th. I lied, I did know about this. And then the Spring Sale is from March 16th to the 23rd. The addition of the Spring Sale was popular, of course, in the more recent years, so Valve has actually decided to continue it, with it being that originally they actually did only a summer and a winter sale. So kind of cool that they're going to continue on with the trend of doing autumn and spring.
Yay, more money to spend.
Yay! Games on sale year round. And in the next bit from Valve, Valve has actually revealed the top 10 played games of September on the Steam Deck, leaving Vampire Survivor at the number 1 spot yet again. This after the 1.0 version full release, and it jumped in price from $2.99 to $4.99. And actually still beating out the juggernaut Elden Ring, followed by Stardew Valley coming in at 3, Cyberpunk, then Hades, No Man's Sky, then Elder Scrolls Skyrim Special Edition, Spider-Man Remastered coming in at 7, Cult of the Lamb, actually at 8, excuse me, Cult of the Lamb, and then Disney's Dreamlight Valley coming in at the 10 spot. So kind of cool to see what's dominating the Steam Deck currently. And in the last bit of quest markers, the one that I was actually talking about in our last bit of news is Overwatch 2 will require a phone number in order to play. And this does not include just like random Google generated numbers that you can use. Where'd that article? I just opened it. Dang it.
You're losing everything. No.
Yeah, I lost it. There it is. So basically what it ties down to is Blizzard wants to have I want to say it was, what they call it, SMS.
They call it SMS Protect.
SMS Protect, which is basically they're tying your cell phone to your account, and this is the reason it can't be just a Google number, because you can generate those randomly. It has to be a finite number that you've had for a substantial amount of time that has to be paid for. It can't be a paid for monthly number either. Not only that, it is also for your account protection for account hacking. So any of your account information will be tied to your phone number, which unfortunately does mean that crummy SMS text message verification code potentially, but with the current hack being as such from Rockstar, we have yet to see if that'll actually change or affect how the phone number will affect the usage of Overwatch 2. But with that is all of the quest markers for today.
All right. Well, with that being it for the quest markers, that is it for the weekly news roundup for October 1st, 2022. And as always, of course, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into this week's news roundup. If you missed out on any of the news, don't fret. You can always check it out here on the VOD as soon as it gets published here on YouTube. And of course, you can always check it out on our podcast platform too. That podcast platform we are supported on is anchor.fm/the-NPCs-podcast. If you don't want to use Anchor, you can always go and check out where we're at on different podcast platforms out there. That includes Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, a bunch of others. Go visit our own page, though, at anchor.fm/the-NPCs-podcast to find out which ones we are on. Of course, follow us here on YouTube, so that way anytime we do go live, publish any content, you can catch that as soon as it becomes available. And, of course, follow us on social media. With that, of course, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this week's episode. We will catch you all next week.
Laters.